Ladies and gentlemen, bacteria and germs of all ages, we have gathered here today because this here is an equal opportunity YouTube channel and we make fun of absolutely everybody here equally. So, let's bring out our next contestant, Miss Blair White. She has some, once again, slightly controversial opinions that we are going to take a look at and see what she thinks and talk about our thoughts about what she thinks on this matter. Oh, Lord.
Strap in because today's topic, it's a lot like Joe Biden. Touchy.
Girl! To be fair, I wouldn't exactly call him Touchy. I'd call him Sniffy Biden, but okay.
In 2025, I would hope that we are all on the same page that this phrase, conspiracy theorist, is not actually an insult. I would personally consider it a compliment. And even further than that,
Girl, how you gonna consider that a compliment? That means you're crazy. That means you're crazy. If somebody walks up to you and calls you a conspiracy theorist, it means that they think you're insane.
a genuine survival skill. And if you think about it, it's actually hilarious it ever was used as an insult because we're acting like the act of conspiring.
To be fair, I am going to say directly at the beginning of this video, Blair White does have a lot of points that I do agree with on quite a regular basis. However, she also has a lot of strange things that I tend to disagree with, so let's see what side I'm on this time.
Conspiring is just so fringe, so unlikely to occur. Like, no one conspires, no one lies. Why would you think that way? The government doesn't do that ever.
What?
Okay. It's not as if they ever successfully ran.
Sure, nobody ever lied. Nobody ever conspired to hide anything in any government area. But the thing that you don't understand here, Blair, is sometimes they hide specific things for the good of the general public so that it doesn't cause a huge panic. Just saying.
Control experiments on unwilling citizens. They definitely never intentionally experiments on unwilling citizens.
Okay, let's read this. Project MK Ultra from Intelpedia. This page has not been edited since October 2nd, 2011. Please help with completing or updating the page if it has intelligence value, blah blah blah. Project MK Ultra or MKUltra was the code name for a covert CIA mind control and chemical interrogation research program run by the Office of Scientific Intelligence. This official U.S. government program began in the early 1950s, continuing at least through the late 1960s, and it supposedly used United States citizens as unwitting test subjects. The published evidence indicates that Project MK Ultra involved surreptitious use of many types of drugs as well as other methods to manipulate individual mental states and to alter brain function. Project MK Ultra was first brought to wide public attention in 1975 by the U.S. Congress through investigations by the Church Committee and by a presidential commission known as the Rockefeller Commission Investigative Efforts. We were hampered by the fact that the CIA director Richard Helms ordered all MK Ultra files destroyed in 1973, and the Church Committee and Rockefeller Commission investigations relied on the sworn testimony of direct participants and a relatively small number of documents that survived the Helms and Destruction Order. Now, MK Ultra did apparently happen, but I don't think that they're legally able to do this and type of thing anymore, government or not. Let's
They
see what
definitely
else.
never intentionally gave a population of African Americans in the inner city syphilis just to see what would happen.
Yes, yes, they did. That was something. That was a very, very long-lasting experiment. And that was all done in America, but this was a worldwide epidemic, and all of the instances that you're talking about happened because the CIA was involved, and they were CIA done experiments.
And one thing I know for certain is that Nancy Pelosi is most definitely not an old reptilian shape-shifting whore.
We're different from the president. We're very
Now,
discreet.
that I don't believe. Look at that bitch. She is lizard-like. Look at her. Look at her. That is definitely a lizard lady. That she is definitely a human reptile. There is no denying the reptilian nature of these women.
Reptilian.
And you know, Hunter's laptop is fake. Biden's definitely young and mentally fit, right? Transitioning kids, that's actually
No, no, no. Neither of the American presidential candidates are neither young nor mentally fit. However, I digress.
safe and reversible. And what about those drones, right? How are those drones up in the sky that the government
And don't even get me started on Kamala Harris. That bitch just seems like she's she seems like she's AI.
definitely doesn't know what they are, but also knows they're not a danger to you, right? The point is, it's not actually a sign of intellectual superiority if your first reflex when a political
Why are you, of all people, worried about drones? Other than the fact that they might spy on you.
event happens, a tragedy happens, whatever, to just take the government narrative as the truth. It's actually the opposite of that. It makes you the schizo, in fact. And as you already know by the title and the costume. Hi. We have to talk about COVID today.
So, every normal human being that does not hear voices and does not believe that the shadow government is creeping out from the bottoms of the earth to come and get us is an actual schizo. And the real crazies, they're the ones hiding around in caves waiting for the end of the world, right? Okay, Blair. Okay.
Specifically, how the COVID-19 conspiracy theorists were kind of right about everything.
How were they right? What were they right about?
First up is the lab leak theory. So, up until about 5 seconds ago, if you suggested that COVID-19, a respiratory virus first observed in Wuhan, China, originated from the lab in Wuhan, China, specifically known for respiratory
I thought that it was from like tainted fish or something. At least that's what my grandma told me.
viruses, you were treated as, I would say crazy, but you were actually called racist for that.
Something you probably have heard from a certain corner of the right is this theory that the coronavirus
That's not racist. There were so many different people that were making viruses and distributing them throughout the years over so many different decades. You can't say that China's the only one that did it, but I thought that they did it with fish. Can somebody please confirm the fish? But I also thought that it was an accidental breakout and it contaminated fish. I'm probably completely incorrect. All I know is what my Nana told me she heard on the Canadian news.
quote escaped from the lab.
We must stop the racism. We must stop the hate.
Do you think that puts Asian Americans at risk, that people might target them?
No, not at all.
Come to Chinatown. Here we are. We're, again, careful, safe.
Look at her. And you're trying to tell me that there isn't a kimono dragon in disguise? You don't look at that lady and see a gecko? Come on, Blair. You don't see a gecko. You don't look at that and see a bearded dragon? No? Cute little salamander? No one? No, okay.
And come join us.
And we all know the only phrase that shuts down a conversation quicker than conspiracy theorists is racist. And even worse than just getting called racist, you were actually deplatformed for saying this, for the sin of stating the obvious, whether you were an everyday citizen, an influencer, a doctor, a lawyer. Like, you could have a good reputation. You could be a completely sane individual making a completely sane connection, common sense connection. Whether it was Facebook, the old libbed out Twitter.
Who's gonna call anybody racist? Isn't nobody knows anybody on the internet's actual race. Like, no one knows your genealogy unless you tell them. And I don't know, the only thing I really tell people is that I'm mixed. I don't tell people what I'm mixed with, other than, well, everybody knows I'm Roma, but that's pretty easy to tell. Who cares?
Like, you couldn't say this very obvious truth. As of 2025, then and now, right? All roads really do lead to, it really did come out of this demonic lab. As of today, the FBI, the U.S. Department of Energy.
Why are you calling the lab demonic? It's not the lab's fault. Scientists are not evil. Scientists are not evil. They were trying to help. They didn't know what they were doing. They accidentally released something. It was literally an accident. Gosh darn it.
Declassified intelligence reports and a House committee as recent as December 2024 have all adopted the lab leak theory. Shocking. Who could have predicted this? Other than everybody who was banned for predicting this. Conspiracy theorist 1, satanic cabal 0. And
once again, was it not an accident? You can't blame anybody for an accident. Accidents happen, and at the end of the day, do you know how many labs that are, like, studying different diseases and making different types of, like, Jesus, Blair. Do you know how many labs are studying different types of diseases and are studying different types of viruses that literally have no choice but to make some of these viruses in a lab in order to study them so that they can find cures? Letting that loose would not have ever been an intentional thing. I wouldn't think, anyway.
Even that little nasty Dr. Fauci has been forced to adopt it as well.
Today you testified that you did not suppress the lab leak theory, yet in the past you have said, quote, it is a distortion of reality, unquote. You've said, quote, I've heard these conspiracy theories, and like all conspiracy theories, they're just conspiracy theories. That's what you told the American people. And so would you like to clarify what science were you following then versus now?
Yeah, no, I've also been very, very clear and said multiple times that I don't think the concept of there being a lab leak is inherently a conspiracy theory.
This coronavirus was not man-made. That is not a possibility.
That sounded pretty cover-uppy, but that's not the point. The point is, I don't even know what the point is. I don't know. I just want to make fun of this. The beer virus wasn't made in a lab. A genetic analysis shows it's from nature. As far as I know, it's literally just a mutated strain of influenza. So it could have just naturally mutated in nature, yeah.
Possibility. The transmission was likely
Science
from animal
News.
to human.
They are actually a good source to get actual information from. Science News is a decent place to get your actual info when it comes to
Even
science.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, a member of the president's coronavirus task force.
No scientific evidence. Fauci, National Geographic. National Geographic is not the best place to get your news from. Fauci, no scientific evidence the coronavirus was made in a Chinese lab. In an exclusive interview, the face of America's COVID-19 response cautions against the rush for states to reopen and offers his tips for handling pandemics. Information's deluge.
Force said there is no scientific evidence the coronavirus was made in a Chinese lab.
And this is such an important piece because all of this, the entire COVID situation, regardless of where you sat politically, I think and I hope that everyone can kind of see now in retrospect, hindsight's 2020, that there was an extreme amount of government overreach and
You know what? That's right, girl. My hindsight is 2020. Actually, double that. It's 40/40. I seen it all. I see the truth. I see the truth that's hidden behind everything.
policing of truth that was not only unnecessary, but extremely terrifying and something that we have.
It is unnecessary and terrifying. But you know what else is unnecessary and terrifying? People who are validating conspiracy theorists.
Have to learn from. Even that robot, Mark Zuckerberg, testified.
To be fair, that dude does have some dead ass fish looking eyes, but I don't think Mark Zuckerberg is actually a robot. Isn't that just a South Park joke? Oh my gosh, is Blair White literally living in South Park? Does she think she's Butters, running around like, Lou, 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 I got some apples. Lou, 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 you got some do. Lou, 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 let's get together. I know just what we can do. You killed Kenny. You bastards. Sorry.
That the Biden administration threatened Meta with lawsuits and increased regulation should they not.
Look at that. That dude has some dead ass eyes. Like, he looks like an emotionless fucking drone. But I don't think that he is actually a robot. I think there's a possibility that he's just a scary dude. I don't think he's ever seen sunlight. The fuck?
With their demands to ban people for saying the truth.
People from the Biden administration.
Okay, so why are you dressed like a naughty nurse for this? I'm sorry.
Would call up our team and like scream at them and curse. They pushed us super hard to take down things that were true, right? I mean, they basically pushed us and said, you know, anything that says that vaccines might have side effects, you basically need to take down. They wanted us to take down this meme of Leonardo DiCaprio looking at a TV talking about how 10 years.
They didn't make you do that because vaccines do have side effects. They made y'all take down all the malarkey about how vaccines cause autism because it's not true. What?
Years from now or something, you know, you're going to see an ad that says, okay, if you took a COVID vaccine, you're eligible for, for this kind of payment, like this sort of like.
I'm extremely doubtful. Not only was that government mandated, but we all signed forms stating that we wanted to take the vaccine and that we were not going to sue for any possible side effects that could happen from the vaccine. At least in Canada. I don't know about anywhere else, but like we all had to like fill out online documents and shit.
Class action lawsuit type meme. And they're like, no, you have to take that down.
And why would they work so hard to suppress something that is such a basic truth? Well, that's because the conspiracy theorists were correct about gain of function as well. And this lab was actually funded by the United States, so it's really not a good look for anybody for this virus to come.
So Blair White is basically insinuating. Let me get this straight. Blair White is currently basically insinuating right now that America had the COVID virus, the coronavirus, the beer virus, the big V, made in America, made in China. That America had it made in China, and then purposely let it loose upon the human population to try to knock out the world. Correct me if I'm wrong so far here. Please, somebody.
Out from there, so you're just not allowed to say that, hun. And if you don't know what gain of function is, ChatGPT says it's research involving altering an organism's genetic makeup to enhance its abilities, such as increasing a virus's infectiousness or adaptability, to study potential risks and develop preventative measures. So not what you want to actually leave the lab, and not to be A conspiracy theorist, like we're discussing here.
Yes, because as far as I'm aware, it was released accidentally. It was an accidental exposure, and somebody left the lab after they were exposed because it wasn't proper. You know what I mean? It wasn't properly secured to keep everything in if somebody were accidentally infected. However, I also thought that it was tainted fish. Somebody say something about the fish, otherwise I'm going to lose all faith in my grandma about this one.
But when you look at it like that, it's really not actually that far-fetched to start to wonder, okay, so was it completely intentional? What was this massive global rollout? Why did all the countries around the world have such similar policies adopted instantly? Why was there this instantaneous response, this uniform, militarized, and monetized response to COVID? Was there in fact a plan?
Purposeful thinning of the population? They trying to wipe themselves out. Let's see if I'm right.
But that would make you crazy, right?
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets are true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some.
Okay, I can't handle all that multiple people talking at once. That is way too much, y'all.
Vaccinate, make an appointment. Vaccinate.
I made my appointment. I got it done. Sorry.
Vaccinate, gets rid of COVID. Vaccinate,
gets rid of all the diseases. Vaccinate, keeps viruses away. Vaccinate, keeps your mumps away. Mumps and measles, they can't get you. The chicken pox, they will stay away. Sorry.
Next is the vaccine. I know this one's a bit sensitive, right? Of a hard topic for some people because some of y'all, got it. Some of y'all got like 8 of them. And this one is so important because the amount of things that, in retrospect now, the conspiracy theorists got right about the vaccine is actually insane. This is where they did their big one. This is where they really
Vaccines are a good thing, Blair. What is the point that you were about to get at? Because I'm sure that it's stupid. Every time I hear you say something about vaccines, it's fucking stupid. Yes, we shall just bust all of the vaccine vials, every single bit of modern medicine available to us. We'll just take it all and toss it about into the ocean, just to appease Miss Blair White.
Kind of called it as it happened and as it was going to happen. And when I say them, I really am talking about myself because she didn't get it. Make all the jokes you want. I'm aware, honey. I put a lot of things in my body, and I know that, I'm kind of like the Atlantic, full of plastic. Really? But one thing I'm not putting in there
is true.
Is that damn COVID vaccine.
That is true. She got a lot of plastic up in there. She got plastic titties, plastic nose, plastic jawline, plastic hair. She's a beautiful lady, but she's plastic. She plastic as fuck. Is she the first person to admit that? And that is very commendable. I like that about her.
I have to be so real. And not even because it is a vaccine, right? Because there's a straw man argument that if you have questions or are skeptical or hesitant about the COVID vaccine in any way, it suddenly makes you anti-vaccine in totality. So suddenly you reject the concept of vaccines as a whole. And that is just really dumb. But here's what they got right. Remember when myocarditis was basically like the N-word? I do. But spoiler alert, the CDC and FDA, as of 2025...
Pericarditis, myocarditis. Isn't myocarditis like a heart condition? Really observed vaccination, United States for multiple vaccine safety systems. blah blah blah. I don't see it, but I think if I'm not wrong, it's a heart condition that is possibly a part of the aftermath of the vaccines that were put out in the first round during the COVID vaccinations. There were also earlier versions of the vaccines that could give people some really awful long-term side effects, and I one of them was Bell's palsy, I think. I'm likely wrong about this. Y'all look this up. Do your own research. I already did it. I'm probably wrong, and I'm admitting I'm probably wrong. I'm just guessing here based on the absolute bullshittery in my brain.
Now acknowledge it as a risk of the vaccine.
I never said I was smart, okay? I said I knew some shit. I never said I was smart.
Especially after the second dose for young males. Because having to worry about a heart attack as a young male
It's a heart condition.
is totally a worthy trade-off to not have to worry about a virus with a 99.9% survival rate. Big emphasis on that. Repeat that.
Survival rate of COVID-19 is approximately 99.5 to 99.97, depending on factors such as age, health conditions. Okay.
Because you can tell someone that now, and they can actually be in shock. There are people that don't even know that that was the level of survivability of this virus. You would think it was the plague when it was happening, and you would even think it was the plague with how some people talk about it in retrospect still. So the crazies were right about myocarditis. They were also right about it not stopping transmission. And this one is really important because this was the main selling point of the vaccine. Every media figure, every politician, every person who was pushing this drug on you.
They lied to us. They lied, but they also told us the truth at the very same time. They lied to us that we shouldn't be going outside. But because we can definitely be going outside, they completely handled the epidemic incorrectly. However, Miss White, there's nothing wrong with the vaccines.
Like your average drug dealer, right? Made the claim that it was going to stop transmission. You get it and you can't give it to somebody else.
Now we know that the vaccines work well enough.
No, that's not true at all. So you are going to sit there and tell me that millions of scientists, like thousands of scientists putting in thousands upon thousands of hours of work on a regular basis throughout the duration of the time that the COVID vaccine was made, they have no idea what they're talking about. You're going to tell me that the people who were behind the actual science for making it and the actual science for looking at the virus had no clue what they were talking about? Sure, girly. You know what? Go ahead. You go ahead and think that, baby cakes. Go on, girl. Do your thing. Do your thing. Do your thing. Go on, girl. Do your thing. Do your thing. Go.
That the virus stops with every vaccinated person. A vaccinated person gets exposed to the virus. The virus does not infect them. The virus cannot then use them.
That isn't true. The virus can infect a vaccinated person. However, it affects them less. I have caught COVID, okay? I used to work retail, so unlike Miss Blair White, I actually had experience being a essential worker and working retail and being out in the public during COVID and constantly having to deal with people and getting coughed on by sick people during the first few months of COVID. Do you know how gross that was? People, before COVID started, people had absolutely no fucking clue about human hygiene and how to handle people in public when it comes to, like, hygienic anything. Like, I'm sorry, but back, like, pre-COVID, it would not have been acceptable for me to freak the frig out if somebody came over and coughed and got all of their nastiness all over me and didn't cover their mouth. It would not be acceptable for me to get mad at them. Nowadays, it's very acceptable for me to get mad at them because that's gross, and I'm sorry, but I don't want somebody spit all over me. And just because somebody takes the vaccine, it's a new vaccine. We haven't been taking it since we were toddlers already yet. And it hasn't been around so that it's already slightly in our for however many generations, so that it's already slightly in our system like other vaccines are when we're born. So, with this in mind, you have to consider the fact that not only have our bodies and the human species bodies not yet built up any type of immunity to this, we are going to need more of said shots in a short amount of time in order to build said immunity up fully, the way that we have with measles, the way that we have with mumps, the way that we have with chickenpox, the way that we have with so many other viruses. Thank you. Keep talking, ma'am.
That person to go anywhere else.
Was the Pfizer COVID vaccine tested on stopping the transmission of the virus before it entered the market? I really want a straight answer, yes or no.
And did we know about stopping immunisation before it entered the market? No. We had to really move at the speed of science.
And anybody who questioned if the vaccine was actually going to be effective at stopping transmission, this was also treated as blasphemous, just like these other things.
That's because it is effective, but it's the same as any other vaccine. It's only effective and it only works if the entire population gets the vaccine. If everybody doesn't get the vaccine, then we're going to have an outbreak again. The same way that it happens with mumps, the same way that it happens with measles, the same way that it happens with chickenpox. What, do you want another outbreak of scarlet fever? You want smallpox? Is that what you want? You want smallpox to run rampant? I'm sorry.
Blasphemy.
Yes, me lord. Yes, me lady. Yes, me lady. Yes, queen. Let the smallpox take over. Yes. All of the viruses, let them take all of our lives.
Against our benevolent pharmaceutical companies that we used to be able to rely on, the average lib to actually fight against, to stand against, to be skeptical of.
Okay. We can rely on the pharmaceutical companies. We can. We can rely on them to be scummy, but we can also rely on them to provide actual decent medicines that have fuck tons of side effects. But they are still decent medicines that do work for a majority of people and help many people on a daily basis from dying. Do you know how many people would drop dead regularly without the pharmaceutical company? Sure, blame the pharmaceutical company for COVID. That's what we gotta do.
They became gods during COVID, and that's what's so terrifying. So yeah, spoiler alert, it didn't stop shit. And you can say the science simply changed, and maybe it just didn't meet the expectations at the beginning, but why are we giving these companies and the government this out? Why are we assuming benevolent intentions of entities that we know are not benevolent, that actually actively work against us in every other facet of life? For me, there was many reasons why I didn't take it. One being the fact that it was mandated, that it was the second it came out, all of society was under blackmail of taking it. And you can lie and say that there was choice involved, but there was a complete erosion of choice.
There was choice involved, but the choice was literally get the vaccine or stay the fuck home unless you're an essential worker, in which case we will let you go to work without the vaccine, but you also have to take a COVID test every single freaking day and go through this extreme long checklist in order to even get through the workplace door. So yeah, it was essentially blackmail, but at the same time, it was also rules that were strictly put into place for the protection of the general public. However, once again, I do still think that they handled it incorrectly. I just think that they should have completely banned travel altogether from anywhere to anywhere. Like, literally put up freaking blockades at the town borders with police officers. Like, no, nobody enters or leaves the town. Nobody is allowed to at this moment. That would have been a lot better than what we were dealing with, but is what it is.
You had to take it or you couldn't go to school.
I mean, if they'd have gone with an actual good idea like that, like what they did back in the olden days, they definitely wouldn't have as many issues with it spreading as they do. But I digress.
You couldn't go to work, you couldn't see your family, you couldn't hold funerals for your loved ones, you couldn't do anything. You don't get to threaten people with an inability to restart their lives, go to work, go to school, for lockdowns in general to end, which they did not end just because the vaccine came out. I know living in LA, they continued for years. And use the
No, here in Canada, as soon as the vaccines came out, the lockdowns basically ended. Like, there were no more lockdowns after the vaccine came out. I don't. What did the American government do to this woman?
this talking point of it's going to stop transmission, and then it just doesn't. And then everyone's supposed to be like, oh, well, they didn't know any better. Excuse me, because that's the thing. The reason why many healthy people who are actually at virtually no risk of any serious complications and or death due to COVID, many healthy demographics even took the vaccine, is because of this element of protecting people around them, vulnerable people.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Everybody who takes the vaccine, we all just want to protect everybody who takes any kind of vaccine. Everyone who gets all of their shots and takes all their medicines and wears their masks, all that we're doing is trying to protect everyone else around us. I don't understand what your issue with that is.
People around them. This was the entire argument. And it's very important to remember that.
You want to come to this college, buddy? You're going to get vaccinated. Lady, you're going to get vaccinated. Yeah. Big corporations like Amazon and Facebook and all of those others are going to say, you want to work for us, you get vaccinated. And it's been proven that when you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their...
We should all be taking our vaccines. We should all be getting our medicines. We should all do our best to both be skeptical of the shadiness of the pharmaceutical company and believe that they also have the best intentions for us at the same time. Can we not just try to see both sides of the coin here, Blair? Just for a minute, please.
Ideological bullshit, and they get vaccinated.
So then you have to start wondering why the elites were so desperate to get this injection in you. Why were they so desperate to enter you? Essentially, you just forced something into the bodies of billions of people who otherwise didn't need or want it, who otherwise...
Let me guess, Blair thinks it's the microchip they be tracking all of us. They don't need a microchip, honey. They have cell phones, they have computers, they have everything that they need to track us if they want to. They know everything about you, every move you make, every breath you take, every step you make. They are watching you.
Otherwise would have and could have exercised personal choice and bodily autonomy. You know, the thing y'all write on the signs and scream about all the time.
My choice! My choice!
Jesus!
Hello?
Okay, I don't know why she put that in there. That sounded like something that was scary. What kind of drugs is that lady on? Okay.
What is
Where's
it?
your mask? Where is your mask?
I'm in my car. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and you're not wearing a mask. Put your mask on.
Why should anybody have to wear a mask inside of their car? They're alone in an enclosed space. Leave them alone, pink mask lady. Leave them alone.
I'm in my car.
Thank God the people who thought the shot was just going to unalive everybody in one fell swoop were not correct. But when you set a precedent that everyone has to take a shot at the drop of a dime when the government says so, who's to say the next one couldn't be, right? So that's why we have to learn from things and not repeat history. That's why I'm making this.
Now, I will be the very, very, very first person to say I do absolutely, positively do not agree with most of the things that our government system has in place. I actually cannot stand a lot of the different rules and stuff that they have put in since Trudeau's been in office, really. Just, oh, God. But at the same time, the only reason why our government puts a lot of these rules and such in place is because they are genuinely trying to protect the population of the area that they are the leader of. They're thinking of, hopefully, I would hope that anybody in a position of political leadership would think of all of the people of their area as like their family, their kids, their people who they want to protect, who they want to make sure everything is done right by them. But of course, that's a utopia. That's just what I hope for in my brain, and that is not always reality.
This video. The spell that was placed over so many people, even that I know in my personal life, I'm not trying to attack anybody, but I knew people that were getting this shot the second it came out, the week it came out, when they were pregnant. I knew people that were taking it multiple from different locations.
See, I have heard that Moderna can cause women to have trouble with their fertility later on. I'm not sure if that's accurate either, but I have heard that.
Different pharmacies, different brands. Like, people were really...
Moderna being a brand of COVID vaccination. Just to be clear.
Scared, and that is what you need to know. The government always does its big one when you are afraid, when you're willing to give up freedom and liberties for security. And in this case, I believe, my personal opinion, a false sense of security. Natural immunity is another one the crazies got right. And fast forward, of course, the CDC now just casually acknowledges natural immunity as adequate, and they've stopped pretending like it's some mythological superpower. Great.
Natural immunity is a very good and adequate thing that your body is magically capable of doing. However, we should not only be depending on natural immunity when it comes to certain things, especially when it comes to our health. Especially when it comes to like viruses that could possibly be deadly. So I have chronic pulmonary bronchitis, I believe is the proper term for it. I just say I got bronchitis, or shut up, I got asthma, let me cough. But because I have problems with my lungs, and I did catch COVID, both before and after vaccination, I did catch COVID. I caught COVID twice. And 3 times, actually. The first time, it freaking sucked. I had a high fever that I kept sitting around in the shower on cold to keep myself cooled down. It really sucked. The second time, I literally felt like I was dying, but I am so terrified of going to the hospital. I was literally just laying there like, let me go. Let me go. I would rather die than let them poke me with any more needles. They keep poking me with shit. And the third time, after I had my vaccination, like my 2 vaccinations, I barely knew that I had COVID. Like, I didn't even know that I was sick. So, personal experience, plus I'm also thinking off the top of my head, multiple people who had the same type of personal experience. The COVID shots worked, and natural immunization is a real thing. However, the COVID shots, the vaccinations and such, were helping boost our natural immunization ability.
From the CDC today, a new report out just this week says vaccines, get this, were less effective than natural immunity against the Delta variant.
I remember very clearly how badly people were treated for making the very common sense statement that natural immunity might be a better alternative for some people in fighting COVID for their own selves. And they were treated like, I don't know, crazy fundamentalist religious people who don't take their...
Okay, if you are talking a specific decision that you have made for your own self, that you would prefer to use natural immunity specifically for COVID purposes only, yes, I can agree that for some people, specifically for their own selves, it could probably be a good idea with the advice of your doctor to do self-immunization. And or if you feel better about self-immunization, if you felt better before you got the I don't even know, but all I know is if you know your body better than anybody, and if you truly think that self-immunization was the best route for you, Blair White, then you, excuse me, I had a little burp, then you go right ahead. But personally, you know what? I also believe in self-immunization for certain things, and I believe in plant medicines and stuff. But I also believe in the pharmaceutical system, and I think that they do dominantly want to help people. However, they do tend to have shady doings, and they a lot of the time put profit over people, and that is not a great thing. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, man. They are still helping people. Gosh.
Kids to the doctor when they have cancer or something. You were treated like the craziest of the crazy. I can just hear those old witch bitches at The View going catatonic about this one. I can just hear it.
I'm not opposed to the vaccine, but I am opposed to the mandate 100% on the grounds of science.
People have died from COVID.
Honestly,
I just don't think we should.
Honestly, I think that all vaccines should be mandatory. They should make vaccinations mandatory. There should be no anti-vaxxers. I understand questioning the COVID vaccine and such with how new it was and how new the virus is, how difficult the science is to understand. However, I do not agree with questioning vaccinations in general at all in any way, shape, or form. Get vaccinated. Vaccinate your kids. Vaccines do not give kids autism. Vaccines do not give your kids all kinds of horrible mental diseases. Vaccines don't cause ADHD. That's not where these things come from. These are all genetic disorders. They came from you, not the vaccines. It's your fault that your kid has them, not the vaccinations. Sorry to tell you, it's your genetics, not a vaccine.
So when you have the Surgeon General misinformation on our air.
The psychosis that people were under that's the worst part. COVID did not present a uniform risk to people, so why there was a uniform solution forced on everybody is beyond me. Particularly when it comes to kids, this is another hard topic. It's hard not to look back and see it as absolutely sick, just being honest. To force a population who faces virtually zero risk,
to be fair, they did that a lot back in the olden days. My nana, she has a big ass scar on her arm the size of a goddamn nickel. And do you want to know why? Because of the smallpox vaccine. That vaccine had the biggest fucking thing on the end of it, and it left a big circle on the side of your arm. And it was mandatory when she was younger. Vaccines used to be mandatory. At one point, it was mandatory to get vaccines so that you were not spreading viruses. And now there's the anti-vaxxers.
zero risk to be administered a drug. Also with that same blackmail, you can't go back to preschool, you can't go back to 3rd grade, can't be around your friends, can't play outside.
Yeah, that was always the threat, especially when they were putting out the smallpox vaccines and stuff. You were not allowed to go to school, you were not allowed to go do anything unless you had your vaccine, because there's a chance that if you ever possibly picked up that virus somehow, that you are still going to spread it to the rest of the population, because the vaccine doesn't stop everyone from getting it. It builds a small immunity. And once the entire population has the immunity and it keeps building over time, I need to shut up about this.
Side to be able to look back on so many lies, misinformation, false advertising, propaganda. False advertising really being the operative phrase here, because it was a product. It was a product.
It wasn't a product. Nobody paid for the vaccine. If anyone was paying to get the vaccine, that I don't know. Did y'all have to pay for? Okay, people in other countries. I know I have viewers in America. People in other countries. Did y'all have to pay for the vaccine? We did, like Canada. Like we just went and filled out this form online. Did y'all have to pay for it?
The biggest drug cartels in the world get together and buy up all the media and all the politicians and force all the people in.
Okay, you know this is brain rot when she's listening to fucking celebrities. Okay.
The world to stay locked in their homes, and people can only come out if they.
This is a comedian, Blair. This is a comedian. These people are not to be taken seriously.
Take the cartel's drugs and keep taking them over and over.
Next up, we have lockdowns.
Yes, Blair, yes, we all had to stay inside for a year. It was so awful. Everybody had to stay inside for a year. I didn't have to deal with that many people all at once. I had to wear a mask at work. Nobody could recognize me. I had to have a big plastic shield separating me from the customers. Oh, it was awful. Nobody could cough on me and get their spit all over me. Fuck's sakes.
Hi, trauma. Hi. See, lockdowns did work. If the goal was to create mass psychosis, decimate the middle class while further enriching billionaires, skyrocket mental health and substance abuse issues, exacerbate the isolation and loneliness crisis, permanently damage a generation of children by disrupting their crucial developmental years, turn everyone into a feral caged beast who, of course, were going to riot and burn everything down to the
middle class might have been exasperated, but the lower class, we all did fine, honey. We actually thrived during that point. We all had no choice but to work triple shifts. Like, come on, baby cakes. Don't give me this bullarchy.
The ground the second they had the chance, and make everybody fat. Because that definitely happened too. If you were trying to stop COVID.
Yeah, to be fair, I put on quite a few pounds. I put on a few pounds during that year.
Though. No, that was a flop. The entire thing felt like an experiment in how sick they can make people in every discernible way. And I'm not even talking about COVID here. I'm talking about closing gyms and churches, but keeping liquor stores and fast food places open. I'm talking about taking away people's ability to exercise.
Liquor stores were open, fast food places were open, grocery stores were open, everywhere was open. I don't know where the fuck you're living, but everything was open down here. Or up here. Everything was open up here in Canada. Everything. I'm so used to saying down here to other Canadians because we're like down in the south of Canada. But yeah, up here, everything was fine. Everything up here in the Great White North was great. Like, we didn't have that many closures. The places that did close didn't close for too long, and then they reopened for takeout only. Like, sure, you couldn't go sit in a restaurant, but you could still get takeout.
In the midst of a virus that disproportionately affects fat people. And while you're at it, turning up the fat positivity propaganda. I'm talking about taking away people's places of worship, but keeping the weed stores open. And listen, I'm not against weed. I just want to be able to do both. This is America.
Just do what we did and go to a drive-in church. So when they had to close down all of the local churches around here, do you want to know what they did? They literally set up speakers at the ice rink right on the fucking step beside the entrance and made it so that every Sunday it was church parking, and they did drive-in church with the pastor up on the doorstep of the ice rink, and everybody else sitting out in their cars with all their windows rolled down listening to the pastor. So don't you dare tell me you couldn't go to church, 'cause you could, unless your pastors did not give a shit.
I want Jesus and a blunt. They took away people's ability to work anywhere that they, on Jesus, whatever base.
You know what? That one's understandable, Blair. I want Jesus and a blunt too. I get it. Ain't nothing better than Jesus and a blunt.
That they decided deemed as non-essential, as if working anywhere, providing food and money for your family, and keeping a roof over your own head is not essential. Your business that keeps food in your children's mouths gotta go.
Yes, all of that is essential. That's why essential workers still went to work, and then a bunch of people took their jobs off, and then we were all understaffed, so all of us extra essential workers had to work double and triple shifts because nobody else wanted to come the fuck to work because they were all afraid of COVID. And you're going on about how, oh, well, they took away our ability to maintain our homes. Everybody left. They didn't take away anything. Everyone left because they were afraid of COVID. You're not making any sense right now, Blair.
Go. It's got to shut down, and actually, we don't even know when the lockdown's going to end.
When is the last time you were in the workforce? I'm sorry, but can you please explain? I understand you have been a YouTuber for a very long time, and I don't think you've had an actual job other than YouTubing for a very long time. But as somebody who works in between YouTube, I work in between doing YouTube for the most part. What are you talking about, lady? Jobs didn't suddenly disappear because the Rona started. That is actually more jobs did appear during and after Corona. The fact that you think that every job in the world just suddenly disappeared and everybody was out of employment just because of the virus, that's schizo. That is sadly mistaken. That is just completely incorrect.
We'll let you know, I guess, but we don't have a date. Sorry. The VMAs and the Oscars, though. There's no reason to shut those down. That has to go on. What would Americans do if they were not sitting their fat asses on the couch watching Beyonce win her 87th fucking award? That has to go on, babe. See, those televised satanic rituals, babe, we can't go without those. We really can't. It's the poor people that can't work. Didn't you know? And what I know...
Really? Because from what I recall personally, Blair, as somebody who only made a very small amount on a regular basis, I was a minimum wage worker. There was a very high demand for essential workers. There was a very high demand for people to go to work. What the fuck are you talking about?
Saw and still don't see talked about.
Get a grocery job. If people were that concerned that they couldn't make money, go the fuck to work and get a grocery job. Go work with the general public like the rest of us had to, and risk your day and risk your own health like the rest of us did.
Enough is that COVID resulted in one of the largest wealth transfers in human history. Global billionaire wealth increased by over $5 trillion.
Canada lost so frigid much money during the pandemic because they were constantly giving out money to both pay for vaccines, pay for other things for other countries, and give multiple payouts to the citizens so that they could stay alive. What was going on in America? Because Canada is obviously like the best place to have been during COVID, according to Blair White. Like, she sounds like she was in literal hell
between March 2020 and November 2021. Companies like Amazon, Tesla, and Apple, they all exploded while small businesses evaporated. And what's never made sense to me is that the same people who supported lockdowns the most, who wanted those to go on indefinitely, right, who were just so scared of the virus, the same lived out commies who would have been calling Tim Wall's punk-ass snitch hotline because you dared to, I don't know, take one step.
You know what? I am. I'm gonna call his punk ass snitch hotline on you here soon. What is going on? Did your break? Did you break? Are you okay? What's happening here, Blair? Like, you're a very, very smart lady. You are very articulate. You know what is going on with life. Why are you believing any of this?
Out of your front door during the height of lockdowns, those same people are the same people who scream about billionaires and the wealthy elite, and so much so that it's even normalized to like unalive them in the street now. That's just like commonly accepted, right?
No, that should not be commonly accepted by absolutely anybody, anyone who thinks that it is in any way, shape, or form okay to take anyone's life for any reason other than harming a child should definitely be locked up in a mental institution for the rest of their life.
How does that make sense? How all it took for them to completely stick their head in the dirt and not see that this was mostly about class warfare. All it took for that was a virus with a 99.9% survival rate. That's sad. And how many people consequently died later or during COVID as a direct result of the lockdowns? How many people died from the 9 to 10 million less cancer screenings that occurred in 2020, not even counting 21 and 22? How many children faced undue crisis, unnecessary trauma because schools were closed and mandatory reporters were no longer mandatory?
Okay, the very few good points that she does make in this video, I can honestly agree with that, yeah. We shouldn't have put the kids through any of that. There should not have been anybody waiting to go in to get seen to medically. There should have never been any of that. It should have just been, okay, well, you take your COVID test, take one of these fast tests, and we'll take you in if it's negative, and we'll send you home if it's positive. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Reporters.
Are you saying no school children died of COVID?
I'm saying it was the safest group.
Absolutely not.
They were the less vulnerable group, and they suffered and will suffer more.
Unless there was, like, an extremely immunocompromised kid that, like, caught a really, really harsh case of it, I don't think any kids passed on from COVID.
From the mismanagement of COVID than they will from the exposure to COVID. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact.
How many people lost or ruined their lives because of the astronomical rise of depression, anxiety, self-deletion, especially among younger people? Why did children who faced virtually no risk under COVID need to have their education disrupted so extremely that even now in 2025, we continue to see learning gaps that have still not closed?
Oh, that has nothing to do with the government, and that has absolutely nothing to do with the schools. That has to do with bad parenting. See, they sent all of these kids home to go do all of their schooling and stuff at home, not thinking about the fact that their parents aren't going to make them do the work. They are not going to make them read it. They aren't going to help them with it. They're not going to try to help them understand it. Especially if most of these parents are anything like my parents, it's gonna be, okay, kids are supposed to be heard and not seen. Get the fudge out of my face. You deal with all your shit by yourself. Go outside and play. Go be a kid. Go do absolutely anything other than be around me. That's most parents. There is not a high enough number of decent parents out there. Like, really good parents, there is not nearly a high enough number. Adequate? Yeah, sure. Okay-ish? Definitely. There's a pretty high number of those. Bad parents? There's a lot more bad parents out there than there are good parents. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest.
Since pre-COVID. These are ripple effects that are actually way more.
It's not a ripple effect, Blair. God love you. You're such a sweet little, naive, easily fooled soul. It has nothing to do with any of that. It's because the parents of the children are not paying enough attention and do not give enough of a fuck to actually teach their children and or take the time to learn about what their children are learning about in school so that they can properly teach them in the way that they are supposed to learn. That's the issue with that. The fact that the kids had to stay home isn't the issue. The issue is that there are horrible parents that didn't do homeschooling properly.
Disastrous than being forced to go outside or weather a.
Speaking of which, there is another unschooling mom that we are definitely going to have to be covering fairly soon.
Virus with a 99.9% survival rate. It did not and does not ever again justify the type of reaction that society, in lockstep, in their mass formation psychosis bag, enacted. And the saddest part is that the professionals were right about all of it. And that should be a that you have to follow any and all rules they put forward, even if they defy your basic common sense.
Anyways, I can't finish this. Well, it's more like I don't want to finish this. I'm starting to get sleepy. She's making me tired. Starting to get sleepy. She's making me tired. I want to go to bed. So yeah, anyways. Please like the video if you like the video. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Please take care of yourselves and love yourselves. I love all of you guys, and I will see all of your beautiful faces in the next video. Bye-bye. Mwah.